Rhetorical features of podcasts. This episode is related to rhetoric and the media, rhetoric and podcasts. It is part of the activities of Output 2, online course in rhetoric. Project Rhetoric for Innovative Education. This is an episode related to rhetoric and podcasts. The podcast is a relatively new media genre. We will try to briefly present some intersections between traditional rhetoric, media rhetoric, and podcasts. Matters are linguistic, verbal and nonverbal elements, etiquette, the dynamic of a dialogue, topics, etc. Are podcasts variants of contemporary genres in a media ecosystem or in a media environment? Do podcasts have elements of contemporary media rhetoric? Are podcasts a manifestation of virtual rhetoric? Do podcasts support the disclosure or sharing of knowledge and experience in virtual space? Podcasts as a monologue. The podcasters make effective introductions and use expressive and figurative language. A semi-formal style of speaking is established in many podcasts. There is a mixing of terms and words from colloquial language. Some podcasters have their own style, others use irony. Presenters do not resort to satire. The interlocutors avoid breaking ethical norms and rules when presenting their standpoints and different positions. Podcast as a dialogue. At the beginning of every single podcast, there are interesting presentations and self-presentations of participants. Journalists or other experts guide the dialogue in podcasts very well. They are able to maintain the dynamics. At the same time, there is no tension. The questions are formulated in an interesting way. Podcasters do not show aggression and domination during the dialogue. Rhetorical features of podcasts. Podcasters explain the topics clearly and accurately. Participants follow the same model and they give examples and present personal stories. Podcasters strive to get closer to the audience. Their addresses are close to those in conversational style, using personal names rather than surnames, professional positions, scientific titles, degrees, and titles. Some presenters even use nicknames. In many cases, the conversation proceeds semi-formally or informally. At the linguistic level, the participants use professional terms, sometimes jargon, and slang. There is heterogeneity in terms of vocabulary, but there are no insults and words from the lower register of the language. There are different rhetorical situations, and the main aim is to present messages in a clearer, more and more interesting way. From a rhetorical point of view, storytelling is used as part of the script or as a rhetorical device. Many of the participants narrate, and the narrative is not about themselves but about their expertise, experiences, and lessons learned. Participants often use arguments from their personal experience. They draw conclusions. They formulate advice and recommendations to listeners or viewers of the podcasts. Participants often use arguments from their personal experience. They draw conclusions. They formulate advice and recommendations to listeners or viewers of the podcasts. Participants often use an argument from authority, in other words, individuals, university, business organizations, etc. Speakers often say, "I came across a professor at University X who taught me the following," or "When I was taking my digital marketing course, the most interesting and useful thing was the following." Or, "When I was doing my internship, I learned so many new things in practice. Starting my own business, I overcame the following difficulties." Sentences presenting personal experience are part of the language of podcasts in Bulgaria. I unequivocally wanted to do this. I was firmly convinced that I would do this. I devoted myself completely to this profession. Quotes from books, films, media, as well as proverbs and aphorisms were also used by both presenters and participants. This makes the dialogue enjoyable. interesting, and the language is figurative. It is noteworthy that even when criticizing and being ironic, the participants and the presenters do not use arguments against the personality, argumentum ad hominem. They observe good manners of etiquette and do not insult people. Podcasts with popular content contain elements of sensationalism, imagery, colloquialisms. These linguistic features also apply to the dialogue in the podcasts. Podcasters, rhetorical, media, and digital literacy. Podcasters and creators have the necessary rhetorical, media, technical, and digital literacy. The hosts are able to clearly define the topic and introduce the participants. The interlocutors in the podcast are professionals in a particular field or people who want to share their experiences in an interesting and accessible way in an online environment. The presenters are able to guide the dialogue. The participants are able to present their expertise of the topic interesting, relevant, provocative, important for people in a specific situation. The authors are in most cases creative, knowledgeable, motivated. Podcasters have language and digital literacy skills. Podcasts stand out for their episodic nature, only some of them being a one-off act of web writing and online communication. The authors manage to present new content that is offered in subsequent episodes. Podcast content, management and distribution. Podcasts are published and broadcasted on the following platforms: SoundCloud, Anchor, Pocket Casts, iTunes, Google Podcasts. Only some are on Spotify. Most podcasts also use the RSS option. The business social network LinkedIn now publishes podcasts that are executive-oriented. The text of the podcast is written by Ivanka Mavrudieva. The text is voiced and read by the actor Stefan Zarev. You have been listening to the episode Rhetorical Features of Podcasts. Output 2, Online Course in Rhetoric. Project Rhetoric for Innovative Education.